Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we'll be talking about my 10 favorite books of 2022. I'm excited. I've been wanting to make this video for a while, but I had my finals week and I was just way too busy. I couldn't prioritize making videos for you guys. But I wanted to get this over with before December's over because this video is going to be about my favorite books, my 10 favorite books of 2022. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. The first book is called Essentialism: The Pursuit of Less by McOwen Greg. I loved this book. I think it's one of those best self-improvement books, honestly. I think it's my favorite self-improvement book, and I've read a lot over the years. It really does deliver its promise of changing your life design. And pretty much our friend McOwen Greg, he explains the traps that we fall into society. So right now with information overload, right now with a lot of social media, right now with a lot of decisions that we have to make, a lot of information which overwhelms us. And this book tells you step by step and strategies to prioritize things, prioritize important things. We end up saying yes too much, too often, and then not saying no enough because it's considered weird, it's considered mean, it's considered being a dick. And this book tells you how to prioritize, how to really ask important questions and be comfortable rejecting people that you won't end up regretting afterwards. This is what McOwen Greg says. Once an Australian nurse named Brownie Ware, who cared for the people in the last 12 weeks of their lives, recorded their most often discussed regrets. At the top of the list, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. So most often we try to fulfill other people's dreams instead of our own. And what ends up happening is we end up regretting a lot of decisions that we make just because we did it for someone else. You came to college because your dad wanted you to go. You played the soccer varsity team because your friends said that you're good at it and they need a left wing. So a lot of decisions that we make, we don't think enough about it. And that's why this book really helps you analyze and understand what are actually crucial, what are actually important for you. The second book is called The Second Mountain by David Brooks. And this book was recommended by this one author, Mark Manson, who wrote Models. I think it was in one of his one of his videos called 15 life-changing books, and he recommended this book. So in life, we have two mountains. We have the mountain of success, society pressure, the professional lifestyle. But the second mountain that we tend to neglect, which Brooks talks about in this book, is the family time, the relationship, the more of like the things that society doesn't really value. So your own personal fulfillment, your meaning, like at the end of your life, would you have a meaningful life or not? So sort of a weird woo-woo, not woo-woo, but a little bit of a strange things that we don't really think about as often. I chose to read this book because I was at that stage of constantly thinking about myself a lot. I mean, I think a lot of people that are on self-improvement, that wants to have a better life, that wants to improve their physical health, that wants to improve their mental health, tend to think too much about themselves. And then I was feeling quite lonely. I didn't really enjoy the way I was thinking and the way I was feeling. So that's why it was bothersome. And I just read the synopsis of this book, and I kind of liked what the author was saying. It wasn't very relevant at the time. I like to read books usually, like whatever problems that I have in life, I like to pick a book that could solve that problem right away. But this book wasn't, at that stage I knew that I couldn't understand everything about the book. It was more of like mindset. It wasn't very practical, but it was very insightful. For most of our life, we're deep-throated with success, accolades, professional growth, but neglecting fulfillment, neglecting meaning. Like, is this actually really important? Is this really going to make your life fucking better or not? So David argues that the essential purpose of living is meaning, fulfillment, and a happy life. that isn't a pursuit of self-improvement, but instead a life of service to others. So of course that as you are constantly thinking about yourself a lot, you fall into the trap of narcissism, you fall into the trap of vanity. But then when you do some service to others, even though it doesn't feel like you're gaining anything, but what he says, and even through data, that a lot of people end up having a very happy life. I remember listening to this book every time I come back, like every night when I'm coming back to my apartment from school, and it's freezing out there. It's like 25 degrees Fahrenheit, but I really enjoyed listening to the book, the narrative, and yeah, I just felt like, I don't know, I was quite happy. Felt happy. Reading this book will let you know through science that we tend to love fucking thinking about ourselves a lot, all the fucking time. And that is the sole reason why we're so fucking depressed. So it's funny. Here's what Brooks has to say to end it off. We think we want ease and comfort, and of course we do from time to time, but there is something inside us that longs for some calling that requires dedication and sacrifice. Sorry guys, I had to change the scenery because there was people walking by me all the time. The door was banging, closing. It was just really annoying, so I had to change the scenery. The third book is called How to Think More About Sex by Alain de Botton. This was a similar read to The Passion Book by Gideon Chopel. Gideon Chopel is this famous Tibetan poet who talks a lot about sex, and except this book was more of, the Alain de Botton's book was more of Western philosophy behind sex and society conversations about sex, and then sort of a scientific point of view through like data and surveys and a lot of stuff like that. Alain de Botton talks about a lot of misguided misperceptions in society about sex, and you'll start to reframe your mind around sex and how you think about it in general, and you'll learn a lot about things that you never knew that happens in bed. I think that's the best way I could explain it. If you're like looking for a step-by-step guide to please a woman or to please a man, then you're shit out of luck, because this book isn't practical. It's more of mental understanding around it, sort of how you could think about it, and more of the conversations that's happening around it in the past and also in the present. Here's a quote that I really liked. In the presence of someone who seems utterly assured of our virtuousness, we dare to share the aspects of ourselves that we are otherwise frightened and ashamed of. We use words and gestures that would cause us to be labeled as maniacs in the world beyond. It can be a sign of love to be allowed to slap someone's head across the face, or to collapse our hands forcefully around another's neck. Our partners thereby just demonstrate to us that we know we are essentially honorable. It doesn't matter to them that we have a darker side. They can, like the ideal parent, sees us whole and recognize us as being fundamentally good. We are granted an extraordinary opportunity to feel comfortable in our own skin when willing and generous lover invites us to say or do the very worst things we imagine. And then the author further talks more about history of sex, and I don't know, it's weird to say on the camera, but trust me, when you read the book, it's not as weird as the title is. It's not as uncanny as you might feel like. It really is a fantastic read, and you'll learn a lot about having sex. Yeah. The fourth book is called The Ultimate Library by Jim Rohn. This is another very, very, very good self-improvement book. It gives you step-by-step. It's very practical. It gives you step-by-step. I don't know, when I say self-improvement, I don't mean like you're gonna like elevate. You're not going to like fly, or you're not going to be this extremely confident dude, but you are just going to know how to take care of your emotions. You're going to know what are the most prevalent and most consistent problems that come in your life and how to tackle them. And one of like philosophies by Jim Rohn, he says, is you have to control what you can control and ignore the rest. And this is sort of a similar philosophy in Buddhism as well. I don't know if he's Buddhist, but it's quite similar. I love one of his philosophies. It's that there are 4 seasons every year, and then most of us, 80% of the population, even more, maybe like 90% of the population, tends to hope that winter, oh, get ready for the worst. But we never say get prepared for the worst. Like, you have to know how to handle the hard things in life instead of hoping for easier things, right? And then most of people have this addictive freaking thinking that we hope that everything gets easier, never thinking that we need to learn how to handle the hard things. So that's one of Jim Rohn's philosophies, and that was very insightful. But throughout this book, he really tells you about successful business, tells you a lot about relationships, not like dating wise. I mean, like with your family, building true friendship. Really powerful stuff in there. You'll learn a lot about general life advices. There's so much in there. I don't really want to talk further just because I don't want to spoil it for you guys. I recommend you get the audiobook version. I don't know if there is a book version, but the audiobook version is a really good experience just because Jim Rohn is narrating the whole time. And yeah, I just love that guy talk, man. If you don't know him at all, I recommend you go to YouTube. Stop watching this video. Like, stop watching this video right now. Go to YouTube and then watch this guy talk, man. This guy is on fire when he's talking on the stage. He's probably my favorite public speaker. I wish he was still alive. Like, I would sign up and try to go to his conference. But man, he's such a good speaker. It's crazy. The dynamic range, the way he talks, the way he captures the moment, the way he surprises the audience is amazing. The 5th book is called My Land and My People by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. This is an autobiography by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. I think this is the original one. There was the other one called The Freedom in Exile, but people say this is the original copy. Those of you who don't know, His Holiness is the leader of Tibet. So he's a spiritual and political leader, but he gave up he gave up in politics. Before, he was the political and spiritual leader. Anyhow, he fled Tibet, came to India at a very young age, and then throughout his book he explains what humility can do for a person, what genuine honesty can do for a person. I'm also a Tibetan, so it was nice to read and understand my leader's story. I learned a good amount of information that I didn't know earlier. I knew a good amount of him just because I read other books written by him, but this was truly the best book of him because this is the original autobiography and a lot of information. If you want to know more about Tibet, if you want to know more about His Holiness, who's now like recognized as the most compassionate person in the world, then this book is great. You'll learn a lot about the country and also about him. And then you'll learn a little bit about Tibetan Buddhism, specifically like how to manage your emotions. So you learn a little bit about that through his story though. So yeah, amazing read. I can't recommend it enough. The 6th book is Models by Mark Manson. This is the book to read if you want to know more about dating, relationships, and being a man that gets girls. I'm not saying you're gonna get girls right away after you finish the book. You're still gonna have to work on yourself, but this author will tell you how to work on yourself. It's a very genuine book. There's no like cheat code way to get laid. There's no like weird hype advices out there in the internet. This is more of how to build a lifestyle, how to be that person that attracted, how to be that person that has charisma, how to be that person that has confidence in no matter what situation he's in. One of the definitions of confidence that Mark Manson explains is confidence is not someone that's always succeeding, but it's someone that gets away from, like, he fails a lot, but he's good at not beating himself up from failures, and he tries to learn from his failures all the time. It's someone that knows that life is going up and down all the time, but is fucking good at managing his emotions, being stable, being grounded when things get tough, when life gets tough. We tend to think confidence is more of, oh, this guy's approaching this girl and then, oh, now he's gonna get her number, and he always gets every girl's number. But then a real confident dude is someone that walks up, gets rejected sometimes, but also gets numbers sometimes. So there's a lot of failures and successes, combination of both. But in the end, the person that is not very emotional about himself, that's not beating himself up all the time, and that always strives to learn, is the confident dude. Anyhow, that was a lot of ramble about just one term, confidence. Most importantly, what I genuinely liked is not about the fashion that a man has. It's not about how to get higher status. It's not really about all these things, like materialistic things. It's more about honesty and genuine. And there's this whole chapter dedicated to just how can a man be more genuine? How can a man be more honest? And that's like true attraction. What you actually say doesn't matter. Why you say it matters. It is not about what's being said. It's about the intention, the sub-communication behind it. So I'm sure you probably have been in a situation. I mean, I have been many times just because I fucking believe those Reddits where they say, oh, you got a step-by-step guide to like how to talk to girls. Don't lie to yourself. I know you did as well. I did. I'm admitting it in this video. So I did many times. I did like weird shit like that before. But those never did me right because they were fake. I would compliment someone. I'll compliment this girl that I like. And yeah, I'll compliment her, but then not mean it. And you want to be at that stage where you mean it. Like, don't give compliments like a free ticket. Don't give compliments like a coupon code. You want to, in a way, Mark Manson says that. So in a way, if you are good at that, if you are genuine with yourself, like be true to yourself and really mean your compliments, then the girls that you're attracted to, when they hear it, they really consider it instead of just say, yeah, 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 yeah. Here's a takeaway from this book. You need to learn to trust your own actions and learn to pursue women with your own unique style and personality. Seduction is an interplay of emotions. Your movements or lack of movements reflects and alters emotions, not words. Words are the side effect. Sex is the side effect. The game is emotions, emotions through movement. Honestly, I was starstruck by how knowledgeable Mark Manson is in dating. I mean, genuine, like a lot of his other books. How to Not Give a Fuck About What People Say. Like, How to Not Give a Fuck, something like that. I don't remember the title fully. But in those books, or even like Fuck Hope, the other book, he talks a lot about life advice, genuine, like how to feel happy, how to have a happy life, how to have a meaningful life. So this guy just knows his shit, man. He knows a lot about dating. He knows a lot about life advices that doesn't suck. So really good book. I can't recommend it enough. Hey guys, this is the next day. I had to go for my friend's commencement inauguration, so there was just a lot of people there, and he invited me. I didn't want to reject because it's his graduation day, so I had to end the video. So this is the next day, and I will resume. The 7th book is called The Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco. This is, I mean, the title is very like a quick, it's like a quick get rich scheme, but I honestly learned a lot about entrepreneurship by reading this book. A lot of the YouTubers that I followed, most of them recommended this book, and they're just like a spiral recommendation, so I just had to grab a copy. I learned a lot about entrepreneurship from this book. It feels like I've learned 4 years of college degree for business, and it only took me like 2 weeks solid of reading this book. I'll probably revisit it many times just because there's so many information in there, but I learned a lot about what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what are the luxuries of being an entrepreneur, and what is so hard, what is so goddamn hard about it. Anyone who's interested in wondering how the society works, it's not even about for entrepreneurs, it's about how to be a smart consumer, how to be a smart citizen, and know a lot about what's happening around you. DeMarco talks about the meaning of wealth, and it's not what you think it is. It's not about money. MJ DeMarco boils down to 3 definitions of what's true wealth. And the first thing is having enough time for your friends and your family. So if you have enough wealth, if you have enough money, let's say, which is like the easiest thing to say just because money is tangible, it's because it's numbers. So having time with family and friends. The second is being physically healthy. And that also means, I also mean mentally healthy, because for me, I think the most important thing is first you're mentally healthy, and then you are physically healthy because your mind is in the right frame to have a body, have a better body, if that makes sense. And then the third one is freedom. Like, are you really able to have enough freedom of doing whatever you want? Can you say that, hey, I want to stop working for a little bit and travel the world? Can you be location free? Can you be obviously money free as well? Like, don't have to think about budgeting everything all the time. Don't have to think about quantifying each bite you take from a meal. I don't know who does that, but man, that sounds miserable. Having enough time with your friends and family, having location freedom, having a top-notch body and mental state. Furthermore, the fast lane gets into what's wrong with having a normal college degree, what's wrong with having a normal job. I'll quote what MJ DeMarco said. Fastlane points out what is wrong with the old get a degree, get a job, work hard, retire, rich model, defines wealth in a new way and shows you the path of retiring young. So I highly recommend you read this book. Brilliant book about entrepreneurship, really there. Another book that I recommend probably with it that was as good is The 4 Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. I'm sure everyone knows about this book just because like it's everywhere on the internet. But I learned a lot about entrepreneurship from that book as well. And I don't know, I'm studying economics and I'm quite excited of these knowledge that I'm accumulating and I'm kind of experimenting. So I think I learned a lot. Really good. I highly recommend you read the book. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The 8th book is called Silence by Thich Nhat Hanh. So those of you who don't know Thich Nhat Hanh, he's like the person to bring over a lot of Buddhist philosophies from the East to the West. He's very popular all around the world. Unfortunately, he passed away this year in January, so I chose to read this book as a memory of him. The news was going crazy with his death, and I've just been seeing ads and videos everywhere online, so it forced me to kind of reflect. And the only book that I read in the past, and that was like at the age of 11 or something, but my dad forced me to read that book, and it's called The Old Path, White Clouds. That was a very well written book about the story of Buddha and how he became enlightened and what his struggles were in life, being a prince and all that. And this is the second book that I read from him, and it's really good. He basically teaches you how to be in a calmer state. It's kind of a woo-woo book sometimes just because everyone is striving for logic. But it was good to take a break from, I study economics, so I'm always talking about logic. Things that are sort of in the mental factor domain, things that are not really that controllable at an instant. It takes effort, it takes time, and it takes a lot of resilience. So reading about how to be in a calmer state, how to breathe properly, how to be more present in the moment. All the things that we neglect most often, but makes us very appreciative. Like saying thank you to someone, like walking mindfully and fully aware. While I was reading the book, I usually hate doing chores in my room. I usually hate washing the dishes after meals, but I try to learn how to be more present and do the dishes, sweep like mindfully, and I don't know, it helped. I actually was quite happy, and it's very interesting. The main message that Thich Nhat Hanh is known for and is preaching is you need to appreciate the small things in life, which will eventually compound into an aggregate happy life. And that's what he basically preaches throughout the whole book. I love one of his methods. It's called the walking meditation. I've practiced it many times after reading it throughout this whole year. So I read it in January, so it's been a while, like 11 months. And I would practice it sometimes. I'm very used to listening to audiobooks and podcasts while I'm walking, but sometimes I'll purposely take out my AirPods and just hear the nature, hear birds chirping and cars passing by, and I would try to focus, breathe on my steps, and yeah, it helped. I still try to do it. The 9th book is called The Male Advantage by Chris Sturmey. So this is he runs a YouTube channel called The First Man, and I think it's mainly for guys that are looking to be on self-improvement. But this book is a very great roadmap for explaining a lot of problems that men are facing right now in the 21st century. Like, I don't know if you've been under a rock or something, but it's a lot harder for a guy to be in a relationship. It's a lot harder it's just more competitive, right? For a guy. I don't know, like, you need to be physically fit. You need to you need to be smart. You need to be a conversationalist. So there's a lot of a demand for you in society that is and beyond, and most of men, what Sturmy preaches throughout the book is that we tend to not front load, meaning that we tend to not do a lot of things at early ages. We have this belief of, oh, you should have fun in your 20s. Oh, you should do whatever you want and enjoy yourself, and like you can like do whatever the hell you want. But then Chris Sturmy throughout the book, he preaches that that's actually the wrong way. And some of the philosophies in this book is quite similar to The Defining Decade by Mag J, and that was also a lot of talk about you need to really pay attention in your 20s. You need to really try your best in life and like build something from scratch, or like read a lot of books, get smarter, or you need to be alone sometimes if you want to be most productive. So a lot of things that are hard, these two books both recommend that you need to start doing at early ages. I don't want to get too much on the masculine side and like what exactly a guy should do, just because, I mean, it's complicated. Everyone is different. But I recommend you read this book. It's really interesting, and you'll learn a lot about, it gives you a roadmap of your life. It gives you what you need to work on, what you don't need to work on, how to prioritize. One of the chapters that I liked is called, it's like the male timeline. And what most people get wrong, and I kind of agree with him, I think I really kind of resonated with me. And what he's saying is that a guy, his 20s is not really his peak performance time. For athletes it is, but for a general normal dude like you and I, it's more of in his 30s or in his 40s. And for some people that's bizarre, just because they think that, oh man, that's when you should like get married, and that's when you should have kids and own big houses and sort of be stable. But then he says like if you work on your nutrition, if you work on doing the proper habits that don't detriment everything that you do, he says that it's really, your peak performance time will be in your 30s and 40s, just because you have front loaded in your 20s. So I like that. I like that point of view, and it's so true. Lastly, last is always the best, as you guys know. Number 10, Never Finished by David Goggins. This was, I think it's a fairly new book right now. I bought it right when it came out. This is a sequel of Can't Hurt Me, which is another book by him in the previous year. I read it 2 years ago, and I learned so much about going through hardship in life, like how to think when you are going through hardship. He shares his personal story. It's very genuine. So this guy, he's a retired Navy SEAL. He is an ultramarathon athlete. He's a lot of things. He's like a fire jumper now or something like that. Crazy. So he achieved a lot of physical hardship, physical competitions. I truly benefited from listening to his story, his hardships, his struggles, and how he overcame them. It's not like a very typical book. He really goes hard and deep into the concepts that he's talking about, and it gets very gruesome sometimes. I don't think I've ever read any book that is that raw. Like, it's just so true, inspiring, honest, and I fucking love it. I think you will as well. I don't want to spoil it for you guys, so I recommend you read it. I don't want to say anything more about him. His story is explained very well so throughout the book, even in Can't Hurt Me and in this book, Never Finished, he talks a lot about his physical achievements, and he gives like a process of like he also gives a glimpse of, well, actually not a glimpse, but he gives a lot of periods of how he's preparing himself and how his mind is working when it's like when it gets super tough. But what resonated with me the most wasn't all the physical achievements, and even he says, is the mental, the things that we don't get to see. What's going on in his mind? How is he able to process? Like, how is he able to achieve it physically when your body is literally, I think he broke his leg when he was running once. I think he like broke his toe as well when he was running another time. I think his heart almost gave up when he was running another time. So his mind is just so strong, and he was talking, and he talks a lot about how your mind is like a callus in your arm. So when you go to lift weights, you see this callus, right? You see the callus? So he says, as one of his philosophies, I really like it, is that the more hardship that you go, it's not really only your body that's becoming disciplined, that's becoming stronger, but it's also your mind. There's no inaction, there's action all the time, and you've decided to make your life harder. You've decided to do something physically challenging that also obviously visibly grow your body, but also make your mind stronger too. Great book, guys. Highly recommend you read it. All right, there it goes. We finished the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found a book that resonated with you. I hope one of these books clicked. I hope you will read either of them or maybe all of them, and recommend me more books for 2023. I'll be reading a lot more, so I'm excited for that. And thank you guys for watching. Until next time, peace.